This episode of Getting Tabled is brought to you by Valhalla Hobby. If you use the code GT2305, you get 5% off any order over $100. You can find them at valhallahobby.com.
Brought to you by
Thank you,
some
Valhalla.
guys on the internet.
This is Getting Tabled.
With your hosts, Jason the Bruce,
You guy!
George the Yang,
I hope you are all entertained by my inaptitude.
Jason aka Major Socks.
We've been doing this and talking about various stuff. One of the stuff,
Now sit back, relax, and get tabled.
Hello, future people. Welcome to Getting Tabled. I'm Jason the Bruce. No George this week because George decided that he's going to go to Detroit. Was it Detroit? I don't remember. He's going somewhere. It's only George. We don't care.
I don't know either.
He did say in the message where he was going, but he's
I thought it
gone.
was South Dakota.
He's gone and he took photos of motorbikes. So I should appreciate him. Thank you, George, for taking pictures of
South
motorbikes.
Dakota.
South Dakota. That's South Dakota, Detroit. They all start with D. It's all the same.
South Dakota, Detroit.
Exactly. They're both the same. One's in ruins. The other one is where I don't know. Is there much of a population in South Dakota?
Actually, there is.
Okay. Maybe they do better then.
Especially this time of year when the huge motorcycle convention is going on in Sturgis. But anyways, that's probably where he's having fun at.
I think he took photos of the motorbikes just as coincidence. I don't think that was
right?
But I'm just going to say thank you because he took them for me. That's very clearly not what happened. But hey, that's fine.
Yeah, right. So.
All right. So, a couple of pieces to follow up. I want to start trying to do follow up a little bit more regularly. It's something I had started trying to do a while ago, and then I kind of stopped doing it. There's not always follow up to have. But given that you weren't here, I think we have
I'm back now, and now George is gone. I don't think we're going to have a full cast crew until the end of summer.
I think what happened is that George forgot that he was going away when we were discussing because it was supposed to be a full crew back this week. And then last episode, while you were away, he's like, oh, yeah, I won't be here. He's like, oh, you said you would be.
Anyways, maybe next week or next fortnight.
So, first thing, the people that stole the $300,000 worth of cards were caught. They were caught. Well, the news broke this week that they were caught.
that was interesting.
Basically, they got caught. Well, from what I understand, because I kind of skimmed through the article, I didn't read it detail for detail. But from what I understand, they basically caught the way that I expected that they would. The moment they started trying to sell them. So it was inevitable because you're not going to try and sell them unless you're trying to. It's like you're not going to steal them unless you're trying to sell them because nobody has need for that much cards.
Yeah.
So that many cards. The other thing, at least initially, so the Drop Fleet Commander, we spoke about this story. We're going to talk a little bit more about it later because our game talk discussion today is making big changes to an existing game. But here's the thing. Last episode we quoted Louis because Louis had basically said that he wasn't willing to give a comment. At the time of recording last fortnight, we'd kind of had a point of a lot of very negative opinion coming out from the community, with the exception of Michelle's post, where people actually started to discuss either a way around trying to avoid the new bases or just other ideas on... There was actually discussion in the community about if they were TT Combat, how they would fix basically the point that we raised, which was if you're removing the old bases, you now have no way of actually keeping track of
Picking
anything.
which levels, yeah.
Not officially, at least, anyway.
No, not officially.
Yeah. But here's the thing. We still haven't heard anything from TT Combat at all. Now, I'm sure that there's no accident about that. But given that one of the very first responses from the community was that not talking about this was a mistake, and a mistake that most people had believed was an accident. Like, I don't remember if I said this or not, but my assumption at the time was that they forgot to mention it because of Gen Con. Now, we now know that that's not the case. But I am very concerned about the fact that they haven't actually said anything at this page. Like, even if they're not ready to show what they plan to do, like, even just publicly acknowledging that they haven't even publicly acknowledged that they have a plan for this. And that's not a good thing. I was saying earlier, we generally speak very positively about TT Combat, and that's because they've never given us many reasons not to. I can, including this, I can think of 2 occasions where we've called them out. The other one was when they made the mistake of not going 2nd edition for Drop Fleet Commander. Here's a question for you, Socks. Do you think maybe we're getting 2nd edition and that's not why we're getting an answer yet? I don't, but it's certainly a possibility.
It is a possibility. I have to agree. But, I mean, we've seen the comments come across saying that they're trying to bring manufacturing in-house.
Oh, yes.
Which I understand.
Yeah.
You're trying to cut costs elsewhere in manufacturing. So,
well, it's not just a matter of cutting costs. I mean, yes, that is certainly a problem, certainly an issue that needed to be dealt with. It's also like if they have to get that from outside all of the time, it continually causes a bottleneck that they can't solve themselves.
Supply. Yeah,
and
agree.
Like we touched on, they haven't said this. We said this. The bases needed to change anyway. We've all known this since the game first dropped. The game's what, 6 years old at this point?
Yeah.
It'd have to be around there somewhere. I mean, this has been going. This has been going for 4. Hot LZ was at least 2.
7
years. Okay.
Because I went to Gen Con the year after it was released. And that was in 2017. So it's been out for 7 years now.
The other thing I just want to quickly touch on with this is the bases have gone on sale this weekend, which is good because, well, they need to be on sale. But they're in small, medium, and large.
And
so at the very minimum, there is a change there. Because there are no, it's only 2 base sizes in the old game.
Mm-hmm.
I assume that it's...
There's actually, if you think about it, there's actually 4. Because in the large, you get a super heavy ship as well as 3 heavy ship bases.
Oh, I hadn't actually looked at that.
Yeah. When we get into the actual stuff...
That could be a point in my guess column. Because that's going to have to be a change in the rules.
Well, you also think about it. The normal large base that we
is
have
not big
now,
not big enough for the dreadnoughts. It's been a problem for a long time.
Bingo. Yeah, it's too heavy on top heavy.
Yeah.
So it's going to be. But now that you got a little bit larger size for specifically dreadnoughts and battleships.
Yeah, it's saying that Drop Fleet's also a game where base size is not really going to make much of a difference because you're not measuring from the base; you're measuring from the stem.
Center. Yep.
Yeah. So. I mean, if you're playing it properly, that's what you do. I'm sure that there are people out there that measure from the base because they forget about it. And there's one last thing that's not actually on the run sheet, but I know that you know I'm going to talk about this because I mentioned it just before we started recording. Last episode, we spoke a little bit about the War Cradle releases this month. I'm just curious if you have a favourite of what's coming out. You may not. But I'm just curious.
I kind of do, but I mean, you know that I have my Prussians, my Imperium.
Oh, really? You've never mentioned this. Are you a fan of this game, are you, Socks?
Just a little.
Speaking of, we need to update your profile so that it points out that you're a war host now.
Yes. So, yeah, that's another thing is I officially became a war host a few weeks ago, right before I left. It became official. I just got all my stuff in the mail while I was gone. But anyways, so there's a couple other fleets that I'm looking at to getting it in the future. One of them is the Alliance, which is the French and Italy and Spain stuff when they start coming up with the Spanish stuff. But I do like the look of the Union stuff as well. So if I were to get some, but at the same time, I like the Empire look too. I like a look of a lot of the stuff.
So you're hearing it this here first, folks. By the end of this year, Sox is going to own everything that Warcradle will release.
Have all 8 factions, yeah, unfortunately.
No. Everything that they release. That means you have to buy Wild West Exodus as well.
Oh, no, not that.
You can buy Wild West Exodus from JP. He's got some of it to sell.
It sure is.
Wait, is it JP?
How much JP?
Yeah, it's JP.
It's JP.
He was going to give it to me, but he can sell it to you. It'll be fine.
No, just give it to.
It was going to cost too much to ship to me. That's the only reason why I didn't take him up on the offer. It was literally going to cost more than it was going to be ridiculous. So I was like, yeah, no, don't do that, man. It's not.
Don't do that. So I'm liking the look of the Union stuff. When I first was looking into the game, I liked the look of the Union stuff. But those flying cities that the Empire has is pretty cool.
I love those.
So it goes both ways. I don't have a favorite because I like them both.
Yep.
I'm like seeing some of the new stuff that's coming out with the Union. So as well, they're finally starting to get some of their other units that are in their order of battle, the Orbat as we call them. What has all the unit stats and everything like that. So it's good to see the Union getting some more stuff out.
Yeah.
So
the last thing I touched on during that conversation was something I need to expand on, because I was talking about how the fact they've been doing nothing but I was about to say Drop Fleet.
Dystopian Wars.
Dystopian Wars, thank you. They've been doing nothing but releases for that for a little while now. And whilst that was very important early on for obvious reasons, like they had made significant changes to the game and needed to re-release them. Also, like they'd made changes to the lore, so they needed to release stuff that was going to be in line with what they had.
Correct.
They'd done. But Wild West Exodus is the example that I used at the time. Like, we haven't had a release for Wild West Exodus since the new 2-player starter set, which is phenomenal. But I'm kind of concerned because I would have thought at this stage we would have been getting a few more mixed releases as opposed to only concentrating on one thing. It was recently pointed out by you that they also have Firestorm Armada coming, which will most likely release in the same manner, as it should, again. It's just, I know there's only so much that you can say because you're a war host, but do you have any thoughts on the fact that, in my opinion, everything else is being ignored?
I don't think stuff is being ignored. From what I understand, they've got a lot of plans coming up for getting ready for
just be careful.
Dystopian Wars. Yeah, getting ready for Dystopian Wars.
But there was a lot that needed to be done. But I just think that they could have, but like by now, because it's been like it's been at least a year to a year and a half since release.
So we are in 3rd edition of Dystopian Wars right now.
Yeah,
Spartan.
I would have thought by now that we would have started getting like the ball slowly starts slowing down, and you just start drip feeding stuff for the other games back in. Because there's also Mythos. We haven't had anything for a while.
Correct. And actually on their website they have Lost World Exodus as well, which is
Wild West Exodus, but at a different location. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in Japanese, the Asian frontier.
No, it's in Atlantia. Antarctica.
Oh, you're right. But anyways, all I can say is that they are focusing on Dystopian Wars to see what the success is of Dystopian Wars.
That's
before
fair.
They release some of the newer stuff.
Yeah.
So,
which
they want to make
honestly,
sure.
It's going well for
right
them.
now, it's going very well.
Yeah.
I mean, in my little community that I had, like I said, I started me and one other player who's also a war host with me. We started the weekend after Memorial Day, and we've got up to 10 to 14 players.
Yeah.
We normally have 3 to 4 boards a night when we play on Wednesdays. So,
I mean,
it's
when they
pretty well
started doing
in our
it,
area.
Like they already had a built-in community, which helped. Not all of that built-in community continued on with them. There are some that were upset about the changes. We should actually talk about some new stuff.
Newly received or noteworthy information, especially about recent or important events.
And we're going to start with Mantic Games. So, around, when was that book released? It would have probably been this time last year, roughly. When the Big Red book was released, basically Mantic turned around and said, look, we're going to start reworking the Twilight Kin. They took all of the old Twilight Kin off the market, pretty much. Twilight Kin are not Dark Elves, basically. They're totally Dark Elves. Early on, it was very much whatever you wanted it to be, essentially, because they didn't really have any models of their own. And they slowly started drip feeding stuff out, and basically what they decided when that book came out was that, you know what, we don't like what they are. We want to completely redo them. So they took Twilight King off the market, and they've been slowly preparing to re-release them. And we've finally had our first hint at the direction that they're going. So it's probably worth noting. I should also change our scene because otherwise people can't see what we're talking about. So it's also worth noting that this is still not out yet. We still don't have dates for this. They're just starting to tease the direction of the game. They've got, how long is this video? It's a 10-minute video. It's about 3 minutes before you actually start seeing images of the new designs. So, I mean, I can still see elements of your traditional Dark Elves there, but it's very much nowhere near the Spider Queen type stuff that you get from Dungeons and Dragons and Warhammer Fantasy, which is where and Warhammer Fantasy, which stole their look from Dungeons and Dragons. I really, really like this so far. I mean, it's very early days, but this is Twisted Nightmare type stuff. I quite like this. It's going to be interesting to see everything in its final form. At about the 6-minute mark, we do actually get a 3D render. Yeah. Which is nice. And he has a literal hand over the mask of his face, which is interesting. I really like what they're doing here so far. It's going to be interesting to see what they look like long term. But Mantic Games, they do release some really phenomenal stuff. There's still people out there that kind of have this opinion of Mantic Games that's 5 years old at this point, because they have come leaps and bounds since the days of releasing horrible Restic crap. They release high quality stuff at this point.
At the 8 and 9 minute mark, they actually have
a 3D
some
print.
actual.
Yeah.
And they look good.
I assume that's a master that they've been testing by the look of it.
Mm-hmm.
I have this muted so that it doesn't come through on the video.
Yep.
Basically, but yeah. And then below that, obviously, we got a few teasers and character concept art type stuff. I love the evil shields; they're just really cool.
Yeah, they do look cool.
And just because it's related, we still have the Twilight Kin. It's very clearly, they've very clearly taken inspiration from the Armada stuff to get the new look. And the Armada stuff looks gorgeous. It always did. My only criticism for the Armada stuff early on was I kind of felt like I wanted the sails to look slightly different because they're the same sails everybody else has.
Yeah.
But they're gorgeous. They could have
tattered them or.
Yeah, but people can always make their own sails if they want to.
Yes.
It's not that hard. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. Especially, it's not very often that you, there's only a few companies that'll kind of do these teasers. Mantic seem to be doing more and more of them at the moment, which is nice. Yeah. TT Combat, we spoke about those a few minutes ago. So this is what I was kind of saying earlier, where we've got the bases coming out now. So we knew that these were coming, and they're being released in small, medium, and large boxes. And yes, you're right. There's actually 2 different sizes in that large box. I said, I actually think this is important because the large base that we did have never had really been big enough to support the dreadnoughts and stuff anyway. There's also, this is probably the more interesting thing, a new Resistance Amazon battleship And this is absolutely gorgeous. I love this.
Mm-hmm.
More than anybody else, the Resistance really do seem to have a naval feel to them.
Yes.
Like the ships feel older. Oh my god, the cruisers in the front of that thing. Not the cruisers, the missiles in the front of it. I really, really like the look of this. It's modular, so you can still build up your own, because you'll notice that there's multiple ways that you can build this, because it's Resistance, and that's kind of how they work. One of the builds they have is with like a whole heap of guns in the front, and I'm trying to figure out what those guns are.
Yeah, I'm reading the...
Because they're not just laser repeaters. That's something else again. It doesn't
torpedoes.
Look like... No. Keep on going. There's like a picture of like 12 guns sticking out the front of it. Just after the torpedoes facing the other one. Oh, hang on.
Oh,
no.
I see the torpedoes.
No, it's I'm an idiot. It's the engines. I'm an idiot. I'm looking at the engines trying to figure out what sort of gun they are.
You're right.
It was
You're right.
Never mind. I'm an idiot.
No, you're right, because I did the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Because the pictures have been swapped in the order.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, you're right. I like, what's Bruce talking about? But you're right.
Yep.
But yeah, those three massive torpedoes on the front.
Torpedoes
the
are
missile
becoming a
launchers
bigger
on the
thing.
back. Yeah, they are.
I don't know how much they're seeing play, because like at the one stage, like you just never took torpedoes because it wasn't worth it. But
nowadays,
I
think they're becoming more and more.
I need to ask a few people as to what they're like, whether they actually are competitive now or not. I mean, in theory, they should always have been competitive, but they just never really. In theory, they always should have been. It's just that's not really how the game. Like it just never really matched up, which is why they reworked them. The other two big things we have Ruinscape and Cityscape. So they have completely redone the old cardboard terrain buildings. They're still reminiscent of the old ones. I quite like them, honestly.
Yeah.
£30. It's dirt cheap, basically. John, one of our local players, already has, I think he ordered the Cityscape. He's got that coming now. So I'll actually be able to, he's already offered for me to be able to open this on the channel and show it off. So
nice.
I look forward to actually seeing them in person. These have been off the market for a little while.
It has been a while.
I don't know if we ever got an official reason for it, even though realistically the reason is fairly obvious. It was because they went off the market during the pandemic and it was because of supply issues. So they've obviously taken the chance to kind of rework it a little bit as well. I think the floor tiles are still the same. I could be wrong, but they still look the same to me. I personally think that the best way to do these is to essentially buy both and use a mixture of both. Because then you can have your parklands and stuff. Whereas if you buy one or the other, I don't know, I just think having both makes for a more interesting table. The one that we still don't have is there is a wooden version of this that they had released a couple of years at Gen Con that was being done as
that's right.
It was being done as like an event exclusive type thing. And they've kind of gone quiet on that. And I don't really know why. Like the community has been asking a couple of times where this was. I say community, it could just be the same person asking it in multiple posts, but I don't think it was. I saw at least 2 or 3 people asking about it over the last couple of weeks, which is not a lot of people, but nobody seems to really know what's going on there. So it'll be interesting to see.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe, depending on how much of them they were selling, like maybe they took it off because they weren't selling many of them because that was going to be a shipping logistics nightmare. It was just going to be really heavy. But in saying that, I mean, you can have something available and then it's only cut to order, as opposed to, well, you need to keep stock of everything. Like you could just only cut them when there's orders for it. That can cause its own problems, mind you, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, we'll move on from TT Combat. I mean, there is a couple of other things, but I mean, that was the main things I wanted to kind of touch on. Yeah, because I mean, last episode we kind of talked about the new kind of Vale stuff. You guys had already spoken last episode about what your favorites of the drop zone stuff is. So yeah, Forge World. Now, I quite deliberately don't talk about Forge World very often because if you don't live in the UK, it's kind of a frustrating company to deal with. I mean, it's Games Workshop. People can talk about them being different all they like. It's Games Workshop. Also, I have issues with the quality of the resins that they release. I'm not a fan of Forge World. I understand that there are people out there that are, but most of the industry have kind of moved, and these guys still essentially do the same thing. We had teasers of the Get Off the Road miniature at some point in the last 6 to 12 months. I don't remember what release it was teased as part of. But it's now available. It's $150 in Australia. I don't know what it costs for you, Socks. In theory, you can change it over and have a look if you want to.
Let me look.
There's a map in the top right-hand corner.
Yeah.
But I wanted to look at this because this is genuinely phenomenal.
Yeah. It does look pretty good.
This is not a game that I've ever really... It's not that I'm not interested in. It's never been something I've been interested in collecting to play. From what I understand, the rule set is fantastic. There's been very few changes made to this rule set, which is really weird because we're talking about Games Workshop. But there's a very dedicated fan base to this that still to this day play nothing else to a large extent. That's not everybody, obviously, but it has a very dedicated fan base. But this is, if anything, the only thing from Lord of the Rings that I've ever looked at and went, you know what, I'd really love to paint that. I'm not buying it because Lord knows I don't need more projects right now. Lord knows I'd have enough problems with... I genuinely do have issues with, micro-focusing on things. But I'm just, I'm giving credit where it's due. This is really good. We also have some new kill teams coming out. I say new. These are kill teams that were previously around as part of two-player starter sets. I'm not looking at all of them. I've just kind of pointed out the two that I found the most interesting. The first one we're looking at is the Beastman ones, so the Felgor Ravagers. This is very much like the Kroot box. This is another one of those things where we'd known they were around for a while and we've been screaming for models for it for a long time. It's a really gorgeous looking box. This is one that honestly I would consider buying at some point. It's not happening anytime soon, but it is something I would genuinely consider buying. But the other one, given that we have a George that's listening, is the Hearthkin Savages. You can finally buy your Space Dwarf Salvages, George. So you'll enjoy that. Given that you're listening from the middle of a car park in no man's land somewhere, I'm guessing. He was in a car park last night, so he can't be that much further. Like the Hearthkin, we had looked at the Hearthkin early on. Like I said, this is something that had originally been as part of a two-player starter set. And there's differing opinions as to how much value is in those boxes. I certainly don't have a very high opinion of the value that comes in them. Because you kind of have to want everything that's in those boxes for them to be worth buying. But of the four things that came out that this fortnight, I thought that was the most interesting. The prices on screen are the Australian ones again, because at the time when I was putting this list together, it wasn't available in the US or the UK yet. That those prices probably are out by now. But
easy.
Yeah. I would imagine it's going to be around the $70-ish mark. Unless we're being ripped off again. Ravagers are 60. What's George going to be paying for his Space Dwarfs?
he is going to be paying, once it wants to load, $60 as well.
Okay. Yep. So we're being ripped. Oh, hang on. Are we being ripped off? I should probably look at that before I throw that accusation. It's not too bad. It's a $10 difference between what it should be and what it is. The Australian dollar sucks at the moment, so it's not actually all Games Workshop's fault. But moving on. This got released the day after we recorded. Once again, the War Game Soldiers and Strategy magazine is doing their great wargaming survey. There's not a lot to really say here. This is a survey that gets done, hopefully, of the entire wargaming community every year. And basically, they release all of the information every year about what's being spent generally by people, the direction that the industry is going. So, if there's been a big surge in, let's say, fantasy games and people aren't playing as much sci-fi, this tends to point that out because everybody... I feel this out. I tend to probably play more sci-fi than I do fantasy. I'm not someone that plays a lot of historical stuff, but I have had interest in some historical stuff recently, so I kind of put that in there. I would be recommending that everybody fill this out because the more accurate this is, the better it is for the industry, especially the indie side of the industry. I mean, Games Workshop is always going to do whatever they want, but given that there's literally a 75 to 80% market share on their side. Everybody else in the industry is fighting over that 15 to 20%. The more information we can get in there, the better it's going to be for the indie side of the community, basically.
Yep.
So fill this out. Link will be in the comments. As always, there's not much else to say there. More Batman and Robin stuff. So, everybody's favourite Batman movie, Batman Forever, the one with the Batman credit card and the bat nipples, it's not as bad as Batman and Robin, but it doesn't get looked at fondly, let's be honest.
I love that one.
Is that George?
Hello, George. That was George.
So, we have 1997 Batman and Robin. And they look straight out of the movies. These sculpts are gorgeous. But we also have Poison Ivy and Mr. Freeze. And yes, when I was writing this on the run sheet, I put a nice pun in there. I think I wrote Ivy, ice to meet you. Or something like that. Personally, Mr. Freeze is probably my favourite sculpt here. I don't know why. It's not a great costume, but there's always been something about it that I can appreciate. I don't know. It's just something I always liked. I like the fact that they're finally doing them. No more smart remarks from Mr. George that's trying to pretend like he's not here. Anyway, yeah, I saw this and I'm like, you know what? I need to talk about this. Make no mistake. Generally speaking, these two movies get trashed on by the internet. They do have their fan base. It's kind of small. George has opinions.
So I will say this about the Batman and Robin one with the actual Robin title in it. The soundtrack for that movie was the most absolutely amazing thing ever. Oh
yeah, I agree with you on that. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. There's not a bad track on that soundtrack at all. I would probably say that it's up there with the Crow soundtrack, actually, which is really big words. Batman and Robin is kind of where because when Batman Returns happened, there was a lot of very negative feedback about how dark that went. For the same reason that there was very negative opinions on the way that the original Ninja Turtles movie happened. And both of those basically the industry got ruined by those opinions, basically. Because they tried to cater towards people that they shouldn't have been catering towards. And then, Batman and Robin was literally the death of superhero movies for about 10 years.
Well, and unfortunately, Val Kilmer got caught up in that with all of his stuff going on and everything, but just the whole,
Not just Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer only did this one. Oh, wait, hang on. Which is the one? George What's His Face is in one of them.
Yeah, George Clooney is in one.
I can't remember which order they're in now. Kilmer, no, I'm pretty sure. I think Kilmer's this one. I think this is Val Kilmer, and I think George is Clooney. Rather, I think he's in Batman and Robin.
So
Kilmer was Batman Forever.
Okay, yes, I'm right. Good.
So my issue with those, like after the Keaton, before the Bale, is some of the directorial choices for architecture.
Yep.
In Gotham City.
Well, it was trying to it looked like it should have been Batman of the future at that point, as opposed to totally not New York, totally not Chicago, which is what Gotham has always kind of been unofficially a mixture between the two.
Well, no, I was talking about like the giant statues that they're driving the Bat car off of and jumping it.
Well, yeah, that is true. I decided earlier, by the way, that you deliberately parked in a car park full of motorbikes just to please me.
No, I did not. I parked in a car park where there was lots of people on motorcycles staying.
Yes.
Because I'm close to where Sturgis was. And despite it being over JP, there's still a lot of people on motorcycles in the area.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I was right. Yep. Yeah, JP agrees. Well, not so much that he agrees with me. There's a recording going on. That's why you're all spouting gibberish.
He's like, why is all this gibberish going on? That's why. Hey, Shay.
This conversation stay is because Night Models are releasing Batman and Robin 1997 minis. So I started by saying how garbage the Batman Forever was. George likes Batman Forever. And then it kind of just snowballed. We kind of got diverted. I still, honestly, the Mr. Freeze is my favorite here. I just think there's always been something about that suit I liked. Ignoring, regardless of whether you like the direction the movie took him or not, I think the aesthetics of the costume were always very good, personally. I don't think Schwarzenegger was the right person to play that role. But
no, he was too buff. It needed to be some scrawny guy so they could mimic the Mr. Freeze from the animated series. They were trying to live off.
But I think the idea was that if they get Schwarzenegger in, then not only will it be a Batman movie, it'll also get Schwarzenegger money on top of it. And that's not really what happened. It was, the movie made a lot of money. Actually, Batman and Robin made a lot of money too. It was just hated so much by everybody that it literally killed superhero movies for 10 years. And that's not hyperbole. That is literally what happened. It killed superhero movies. But if that hadn't have happened, we probably wouldn't have had the resurgence that we do now. Because
I would say oversurgence at this point now.
Well, yeah, you're not the only one to make that remark. We should finally move on. Brutal Cities. Welcome, by the way, George.
Yeah, I finally finished eating dinner up in Rapid City. Drank way too much this morning while trying to play golf, and I now have a chance to sit down, relax, watch Iron Man 2 on mute, and I can do the end of the podcast audibly without... I'm sorry, you don't get to see my beautiful face.
Speaking of superhero movies.
Apparently it wasn't 10 years. I'm exaggerating there. I thought it was clear that I was exaggerating. But anyway, it was only 3 years until the X-Men movies came out. It felt like forever. I was... I was mid-teens at that point, so I wasn't really paying as much attention as I like to pretend that I was.
I wouldn't call those great though either. I like the whole concept of them, and I was excited, and I saw it, and I was like, well, now I'm disappointed again.
I enjoyed the original we're still diverging. I enjoyed the original X-Men movies at the time when they were released, but the quality in movies went up after that, and they're not as easy to watch now as they were at the time.
Yeah. Sure.
Anyway, Brutal Cities. Brutal Cities have a new line that's coming out this weekend. This is very much, I'm going to say, it's sci-fi terrain. Brutal Cities, George, you may remember them. They released like the giant, like basically it was like a gaming table inside a building type stuff. We were very impressed at the time. They also did the stuff where it's like see-through, like you could actually have like see-through buildings and stuff.
Whoa.
So the Trapper Biotech Genesis bundle, try saying that 3 times fast, is very much like, I want to say this is kind of cyberpunk-ish. It's going to depend on how you paint it, obviously. So yeah, very much sci-fi. This is very, very modular. I mean, you could put this out as just all separate buildings, but you can also put them all together to make like giant ramshackle type monstrosities. Oh, later literally call it a monstrosity here.
Can we address the fact that there are greenhouses?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I was hinting at a minute ago. That's actually slightly older. The greenhouses came out. We spoke about them when they came out last year. They almost won awards for those.
I just, it's so remarkable to see like tabletop terrain of greenhouses. Like,
yep. And they're actually see-through.
And they have planter boxes that you can have for them too.
They also work the same material into some of those buildings. So there's a Trapper Biotech bundle that kind of combines the two. And so there you're getting a little bit of your see-through windows and stuff. This is, when it comes to, like, this is very much your, as opposed to being grimdark, it's like this is a utopian type future look to these. So probably more in line with, I would probably argue, Infinity, although you'd argue that that's not really
like a Blade Runner.
Yeah. I like the fact that this stuff all kind of breaks down into each other too. Like, these guys are doing phenomenal stuff. This is an Australian company again too. I find it like we have a lot of really good terrain people in this country, which is surprising at times.
Actually, it's not if you think about it, because if you look at all the other terrain, it's either made in the U.S. or Europe, and how much does it cost to ship that, Bruce?
Well, yeah, that is true. Yeah.
So it's only smart that someone in Australia has decided, if I make it here, I can sell it and I don't have to charge $30 gajillion to ship it.
My assumption is that these bundles probably won't last forever. This is an assumption, though. I don't know this for a fact. My assumption is that this bundle will be temporary, and then you'll just have to buy the pieces separately, because you can just buy the pieces separately right now. But like I said, I'm making an assumption there. I don't know that for a fact. I just think this stuff looks really cool.
Indie, definition, independent, type, slang word, jargon.
And this week, I decided that I wanted to talk about a friend of the podcast, Laserforge Miniatures. George and I talked about them very, very briefly last episode to talk about their bases, because, well, there was a problem with Drop Fleet Commander bases. And I was like, well, you can also buy this stuff.
Someone's dropping the ball and not releasing bases yet?
Oh, they still haven't. I actually called them out on this a little while ago. At the start, one of the follow-up items was the fact that, like, they still haven't said a word. Like, they haven't even officially said that they have something coming. Like, I did quote him, but like they haven't even officially said that. There's also new base sizes coming out. I don't know if you've noticed that or not.
I did not, but that would only make sense for like the Dreadnoughts.
The large bases were never big enough for them anyway.
There's 4 actual sizes now, George. There's a small for your frigates, medium for all your medium tonnage, and then 2 larger, a heavy and a super heavy base.
Yeah, makes sense.
The other thing that I kind of touched on when we were discussing that very briefly was that because of the way the rules are written, different base sizes isn't actually going to make a difference to the game itself. Because one of the early things I was like, does this mean they're going to do the second edition that I said they should have done 12 months ago? But I doubt that, because you don't need to actually change the rules for that to work.
Yeah, no, the only thing the base sizes will do is save space and storage and on the game board where you're getting in close.
Yeah, because you got to measure for the stem anyway.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. Anyway. Laserforge Miniatures have some really, really, really cool options for your Drop Fleet Commander bases. Like, there were complaints about those bases pretty much from the moment that they were released. Alan was the first to come up with an answer that I know of. I know Blots have an answer for them as well now, but I'm pretty sure the Blots ones came out later.
If I remember correctly, Alan was one of the first people to do a well-designed, well-packaged, like, buy this kit, and it could do these bases instead of this.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So, what else do we want to look at? So, under 3D prints, under Laser Forge, let's talk about the Forgeborn. So, the Forgeborn definitely don't belong in a certain dark and gritty type future. These are all 3D print options for alternative models, let's say. A whole heap of stuff that you can't really get officially at this stage. Very much taking things in his own direction, which is important if he wants to keep them on the market. But you can definitely tell that they belong in 40K. Like, this is, like, there is a lot of people doing this right now. Some taking liberties and some not. I would argue that there's not really any liberties in this stuff, which is a good thing. Liberties in the context of how I'm saying it is people just recreating stuff that Games Workshop sell. And obviously that's a problem for a number of reasons.
So I would go a step further. I would say, looking at his stuff, I would say this has more of a 30K vibe to it.
I was thinking that as well, honestly. The Aximus Weapons platform Dreadnought definitely feels like it belongs in 30K.
Well, even the ancient Dreadnought Redemptus. Like,
well, I mean, that is just a Redempted... Oh, well, no, it's not just a Redempted Dreadnought, but it's very clearly based on that. I love the fact that it has toes.
Yeah, but the way, like, the armor plates are stacked, and, like, it just feels very 30K-ish with that appearance. The other one is the Forgeborn Thunderstorm Cannon.
Yep. I like that, because the thing I like about this stuff is that you can kind of see where it's come from today's technology. Like the tanks, for example. Like, yes, it still has the general shape of what a Land Raider would look like. But because of the way the armor and the tracks have been designed, it looks closer to something that would have developed from something that we did than the 40K stuff that kind of is just their own thing, which is fine. I'm not, like, it's their vision. But it's a good way to help differentiate, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. What else do we have? Martian Armatorium. I think all of the stuff that we're looking at here... Actually, no, I want to look at the Bionic upgrades, because I'm kind of hoping that these are... Yep, this is exactly what I was hoping that they are. This is... You used to be able to buy a lot of, like, bionic arms and bionic legs and stuff and kind of swap them over, and you don't really get them as much as you used to. But that is literally what we're looking at here.
Are we on the same page, or
3D prints? Bionic upgrades under Laser Forge.
I clicked on the wrong thing.
So yeah, basically this is a whole heap of, like, robotic legs, robotic arms. I mean, there's certain armies where this kind of makes more sense than in others, but I really like what I'm looking at here, because I'd like to see more of this.
Well, excuse me, sorry. Given especially, Sox can relate to this too, with our current, level of medical technology and, what warfare is actually with loss of limb and stuff like that. I think this is a great addition because, I mean, 40K Universe, sure, they've got better armor, blah, 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 blah. But Tyranids of Sharp Jaws, limbs are still going to be lost. It's going to be faster to attach a cybernetic than regrow or, reattach a limb.
Yep, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So, since, like, because back in the Hot LZ days, we used to be sponsored by Alan. We're not anymore, and that's not why we're covering it. It's just that he's been a friend of the podcast for a long time. And I was like, you know what? Because since then, and we did cover it when it happened, his business actually morphed into an actual gaming store. So, like, he is now literally selling, and yeah, I mean, he's in the UK though, so it's all right. He can't compete. But like, he's literally selling all of your 40k stuff, all of like everything basically. He's not quite as like, his range is not as wide as Valhalla Hobby. It's certainly more modest, but it's a kind of a modest store, and I don't mean that in a critical way. Like, he's trying to run his business in a smart way, and you only can buy so much stuff at a time until you're established, at least anyway. He's been open for, it'd have to be 2 years at this point.
Yep, September 21.
He was open. Yeah, he had issues right around COVID.
Yep,
with the store and everything. So yeah.
The thing that I am noticing is that I don't see the game that he developed being sold anymore. He had a game that he had developed, which was a naval fleet game, and it doesn't look like he has it on there anymore, which is a shame. It mustn't have gone anywhere. Like, generally, the feedback that he was getting was very good. I did actually have a set of it. Actually, did we all get a set of it, or was it just me? I know Michelle got one.
It was just you.
Yeah, I think it was just me because I actually showed interest. Yeah, I mean, that's a shame. But I just wanted to kind of look at this because, like, as I said, like, he's a fan of the podcast, has been for a long time, and we haven't really looked at him again since he started expanding the business. Like, even in just the laser cut items, he has a lot more stuff that's available now than he used to. Like, at one point, it was just BattleTech and Drop Fleet. That's just spun.
I will argue, he has probably some of the best dial trackers on the market.
Yep, I actually just clicked on those, ironically. I really like the look of the BattleTech ones. They're kind of cool. I like the cog design.
I like the fact that, you know, it's magnetic. It's 2 parts. You can get like your faction specific, you know, marker on. So I mean, that's just incentive for you to buy multiple sets. So you have one for each army. Hate that.
I like,
but yeah,
ones. I'm not buying anything. I'm being a good boy. I don't need to buy anything. I really like the
sure.
I bought the Space Wolves from him for 40, and yeah, those are really they're really nice trackers in my opinion. So
I really like these. They're really nice. Like, I just happened to have been clicking on them when you mentioned them, but yeah, I really like these. And I like the fact that it's not just the main factions that he's doing. Like, there's a thing here of Necrons, obviously, and he's done all of the dynasties. He's done the same thing with the Tau. He's done the same thing with the Eldar. And in a case of, like, because this is not generally something that you would need to stock everything of, you could cut this to order if you really wanted to. So it's just a matter of getting stuff done when he has the chance to do it, I suppose. But I like the fact that it's not just Chaos, Blood Angels, da-da-da-da-da.
Well, and it's not just that too. I mean, if you scroll down, there's, you know, some BattleTech stuff. There's Malifaux. You know, it's.
I like the fact that the BattleTech stuff looks like it's actually come out of a mech. It looks like the dial that you have there. I like that. The only thing I would say is that I would like to see something, and whether it would be worth having, I'd like to see something generic just for everybody else. Because you don't need to do individual stuff for everything, because not everything is really going to sell. But if there was something that was generic there'd be something that everybody could buy. That's probably the only real thought I would have. Otherwise, yeah, they're based in England. I don't remember where in England. I'm quickly scrolling. It's in Lancaster. Yep. He's
One of the
closed on Thursdays.
That's an odd day to be closed choice.
Not necessarily. It depends on what business is like in their area. I mean,
That's fair.
a common one tends to be Mondays because Monday tends to be a slower day. But
Well, if you look at gaming stores, you got Friday Night Magic and that stuff. Then you have your weekend stuff. If there's a new set of something, typically your pre-releases are happening Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yep.
So,
just thinking
Monday,
off the top of my head, if you close on Thursday before, let's be fair, the 3 busiest days of the week, it means that you're charged and ready to go for Friday, which will be one of the busiest days.
Yeah.
But I mean, it could just be that in that area, it makes more sense to close on a Thursday instead of another day. Or maybe he just has things on Thursdays and he can't get in.
Trim, glue, prime, paint.
Well, before you jump into that, actually, I'm going to sign off for the night. I'm glad I could jump in here for a little bit, but I am exhausted and tired, and I'm actually ready to go to sleep. So,
well, thanks for jumping in, George.
Yep,
I still exist. I'm not avoiding you guys intentionally.
he is. He's just saying that. He's just saying that to be polite.
Hey, I try.
It's okay.
Not hard.
We will pretend to cry in front of you, and then just when you leave, we will be fine. Before we go into hobby, I just want to touch on something that. Hang on, who said it? Shay. TT Combat selling the new bases without describing their solution. It's ridiculous. That is pretty much, I want to say 70 to 80% of the feeling from the community. We are going to talk about hobby.
Yes.
George has done all of his hobby, and that's why he's gone away. So next fortnight, George is going to buy all new stuff. And if that's not what he's doing, then it means that my assumption that I'm now pretending that he said is a lie, and therefore he should apologize for lying to us.
Yes.
I think that's unfair.
Anyways.
You have lots of stuff, apparently.
Yeah, so even though I was on vacation for 3 weeks, I actually brought some of my stuff with me and was able to finish up, actually, earlier today, a majority of my Imperium Surface Fleet.
Nice.
So
little known fact, people. There is actually a table underneath the garbage pile behind him.
Yeah, there is. There's 2 of them. It's hard to see right now because that's how much I've been working on all my stuff.
Yep.
Anyways, so I'll show this off because I got this in the mail, like I said, when I was gone. But it's official. There's my Warhost shirt.
Nice. We need to update your bio.
Yep. So I will be wearing that every Wednesday night at Critical Hit Games when we play Dystopian War. So if you're in the local area, Tampa area, swing on by. Be happy to teach you the game. But this is my Kaiser class battleship.
Nice.
And then I've got my Tempelhof fleet carrier. And then my Conrad support carrier.
Yep.
And you'll notice that the aircraft is painted different than this token. Because if I bring 3 of those Conrads, I can actually upgrade it to my Ace Squadron. And so I was just like, I'm going to paint them all with the Aces. That way, if I bring in a squad of 3.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And then I've got my Blucher class. And this is actually removable.
Nice.
So that if I want to add my artillery cannons, I can. And
are they just push fit, or have you got magnets? I assume they're just push fit.
That one's just push fit.
Yeah.
But I do have
gravity will
magnets on
do
all
the
my
work
turrets.
for you.
Yeah. I have magnets on all my turrets, though. And then I've got a couple little... Which one is this? This is my Toten destroyer. And a Sigmar destroyer as well.
Nice.
And then a couple more bases of fighters and bombers. So, I have been busy.
You have been very busy.
And I'll hopefully have my airships all finished up. The reason why I was focusing on my surface fleet is I could field more actual units with my surface fleet than I could with my airships. and so I wanted to focus on them.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
But hopefully, I'll be able to finish up my airships over the next couple weeks.
So, basically, what this means is that you will be ordering a new Empire army by the end of the week, right? Colin will be lovely and surprised when that arrives next Wednesday.
If I order anything, I will be getting more Imperium so I can build out. So I've got my 2 mechs that I have that I got in my Beyond Sergium Skies box. I'm about ready to paint them as well.
Nice.
But I want to build out their fleet to make a full-on battle fleet or for my force. But I don't know if I can order anything for a while because I just bought a 3rd mat because, like I said, we have 8 to 10 players showing up at our store, and so I have 2 mats already. My warhost Bodhi Johnny, he ordered a mat, and then I just ordered a 3rd mat because
which turned up in amazing fashion. Shall we talk about the quality that turned up in? So first and foremost, who did you order the mat from?
Deep Cut Studios.
Which is a company that has what sort of reputation, Socks?
Good and bad. I mean, shipping wise.
I was going to say, I've never heard negative opinions on the company myself. This is why Michelle and I were so surprised.
I love this company. I mean, I love their mats. They're great mats. I get the mouse pad backed neoprene mats, and I absolutely love them.
And why don't you describe for the folks at home the sort of quality the box was in when it arrived at your doorstep?
So the box...
How closed was it, Socks?
Not very closed. My guess
it was wide open. There was one of the sides of the box was missing.
The top of the box was missing, and about this much of my mat was sticking up and out of the box when it showed up on my doorstep. So somewhere in transit, it either got ripped off and just the rest of the way because all the original packaging slipped and everything.
I'm kind of wondering if maybe it got opened at the border. But in theory, there should have been a sticker to say that happened, right? And I'm assuming that there wasn't one.
I didn't see one.
Yeah.
So something. Yeah. All of a sudden, I show up and go open my front door, and there's a box about 8 inches by about 3 inches, and the top 4 inches of my mat is sticking up out of the box.
Yeah.
So anyways, great company. I absolutely love them. Because I ordered it on Monday and I got it yesterday.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, but what have you been working on, Bruce?
I have been working on terrain because I've mentioned this a couple of times. I have an event coming up. So I've been working on terrain. So I did show off some of this last episode. I've been working on some buildings and stuff. Since then, I've been doing a bit of graffiti and some posters on the walls and stuff. I'll come back to those in a minute. The other thing that I've been working on has been... Hang on, I'm going to move. I have been working on...
Garbage truck.
So this is my garbage truck, which has very clearly been washed very recently.
Yeah, with a
dirty
sponge
rag.
It just says wash. Yeah.
So this is originally this is just a toy. So I sprayed this with some matte sealant, and then I've been washing over the top of it. Largely, this is all done with washes. None of this is really done with, because normally if you're weathering stuff up, you would be using pigments and stuff. And I've been trying to get this done very quickly. So I've been kind of taking the quick road. The issue with washes, you have to wash them you have to watch them while they're drying. Otherwise, they end up looking horrible. I'm kind of really happy with how this has turned out.
Yeah, it looks great.
The actual wash me that's written on the front, I know people watching the podcast are going to go, hey, it's backwards. That's my camera that's doing it. Well, actually, it's not the camera. It's Discord that's doing that.
It looks great to me.
Yes, I know. The issue is that on your own feed, it flips your camera around. And because I record directly from Discord, it flips everything on the recording. There's also another one, which is a fuel truck, and that's basically the same thing, but it says wash me on the back of it. So I kind of left that where it was. We also have a rather generic-looking police car. I had a couple of thoughts on these. I had thought of doing like the whole black and white like the American cars tend to be, because let's be fair, this is an American police car if you look at the sculpt. But I was like, no, I'm just going to do something that looks generic, because like Australian cars tend to be generally white with some like checkerboard pattern on them, because they're kind of more based on the UK ones, really. But I kind of just went with the white because there's no way I'm painting checkerboard. It's not happening. I'm sorry, but no, that's not happening. I've also got a taxi. And why is it not yellow? It actually is yellow. It's just extremely faded.
Yeah.
The idea for all of this stuff is that this has all been ruined a long time ago. It's kind of just been sitting out in the sun.
Think Drop Zone Commander cars.
Yeah, pretty much. There's another police car for you. This one doesn't actually look as wrecked as the other ones. It's clearly still ruined, though. I had an original thought is that I was going to write Equilops on the front of it, because old police cars used to have police written backwards on the front, but I decided against it. Because they used to do it so that in the mirror it would still say police. But they don't do it in Australia anymore. It's disappointing. I painted up the Humvee, which I didn't even realise was actually a Humvee until I put paint on it. I was like, oh, hang on, I know what sort of car that is. So I went up online and I started looking up Humvee colours, and I picked one that, I mean, in theory, this could have been an army vehicle at some point. It probably isn't, but because Humvees obviously can be purchased multiple of ways. This is very clearly a quality car that you could drive out right now. There's no problems with that at all. So, again, really high-quality vehicle, this one. I think JP made a comment about how it's barricade, not just a generic police car. And I think I'm not 100% sure which he's referring to. But yes, like, it's very clearly, like, because barricade is, like, yeah, barricade is a transformer for those that don't know. But this can't be barricade because this guy is a white car, not a black one. I'm kind of like I'm really happy with how they turned out. Oh, I also have numbers on the top of them and I've just realised that one of my numbers is back to front. That's it. I don't care. I'm not changing it now. So I've been kind of very busy on that front.
Yeah, you have.
And I've got more. I'm not even showing everything. How's this for a mattress that you would love to sleep on, Socks? Because that just looks so clean, right?
It's definitely not 5-star, according to your standards. Oh, wait.
No.
That's what you think of mine.
So, yeah, this is a pile of garbage. And this is, like, the reason I printed out something with mattresses is because I have plans for this in my scenarios next weekend. This is where the sniper's going to turn up. Because this is a pile of garbage on top of a rooftop, and he's basically going to sit on top of it going, bang, bang, because sniper.
Nice.
I also have painted up some of the 3D prints from last weekend. These are all printed very, very simply, honestly. Like these garbage bags, they're just printed with, a glossy primer because, well, they're garbage bags, so they should be glossy.
Yeah.
And then, I've painted that silver and I put a wash over it. Like, so it's really, really simple. But you don't have to do complicated for something good.
It looks good.
I could highlight, I could do like edge highlighting and stuff to make these look even better, but I'm trying to get a lot done in a very small amount of time. I also painted up all of the, objective tokens that I made. So this is literally a pile of CDs. Because I kind of decided, because this is an event, it's a public event, and it's a public event where there's probably going to be kids there. And as much as in world, sure, yes, it would make sense for some of these objectives to be like contraband. It's going to be pretty obvious what that would be on the table. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know if I really want to do that in a public event with kids. So I've just gone for fun little details. At least that's the idea anyway. The other thing, the Tiny Master calls. Yep. I secretly, and I say secretly because our Patreon knows about this, I secretly bought a new hat. No. I have secretly bought a new tile system. So these are all 30 centimeters by 30 centimeters, so roughly a foot by a foot. Yes, I realize that means that my screen is in view. I don't care. I do care. They're all magnetized. You can kind of see
Nice.
if I angle it right.
Mm-hmm.
The goal for this is going to be like a modular street tile. That's ultimately the way that it is. The reason that I've I mentioned it to our Patreon, and I haven't mentioned it anywhere else, is because I didn't know if I was going to get this finished in time for the event, and it's not going to be finished in time for the event, unfortunately. But that's okay. I would rather it look good. So I bought rolls of cork to use for the road, and I'll show why in a second. But the problem with rolls of cork is
You got to unroll it.
you've got to unroll it, and unless you got to glue it down, and if you don't do it right, it's always going to spring up. And basically, it's just been a nightmare trying to glue it down. Basically, you get it down, and I'm kind of having to use another tile to keep it flat and hold it in place because it springs up and it moves. And basically, I'm going to use foam board for the actual sidewalks and stuff because they should be taller. So this is all magnetized, holds together rather well, honestly. The thing I found out, me and a mate played on top of this. I just put like a gaming mat on top of them. Because the magnets... Yeah, hang on. Because the magnets are in the bottom...
It likes to fold up on itself.
Well, not so much that. You want to break this apart by doing it this way, not by going that way. Because if you do it that way, the leverage pulls the magnets back out and breaks the super glue. I found that out the hard way the other night. It is possible that maybe two of the magnets just didn't have enough glue in them, and that's how it broke so easily. Well, like the super glue snapped, basically. And it's back in there and glued in it. It's now working again. Thankfully, they're not hard to fix because it's been designed really well. Basically, that is what I'm planning to do as far as looks is concerned. So that's meant to be a road that's very, very worn. I'm going to put like sand in between the cracks and stuff to kind of fill it out. And then obviously it's going to be painted black and have road markings and stuff on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then this will be like generic tiles, and I can kind of put them together in multiple different ways. My intention is to have 4 corner pieces like this. And then I'm going to have probably 4 pieces that are just this side. And then I'll have others that are like full sidewalk, and I can kind of swap and change. I'll probably add to this over time so that I can have like a parkland and stuff.
Yeah.
I probably won't use this I won't use this system for the trailer park because I can just use a grass mat for that. I don't really...
Yep.
I'm trying to create like a street that's not just... Because at the moment I have like a broken cement mat, and I just set it up with all of the buildings, and then whatever doesn't have a building is road, which is fine, but I want something that looks nicer. Especially later on when... If this does get to a point where, hey, this is a game that I'm making, you can buy this soon, I'd like to have something that actually looks like it's a real thing.
Yeah.
So I've been very, very busy. Because I did show these buildings off last time, but I've done a little bit more work on them. So my Redemption Falls sign now has graffiti all over it. Obviously... The kid's parents are dead. What does it say? They couldn't save you. So it's the anarchists trying to win people over, basically. I had painted this last time, but I have started to weather them. So they've all got graffiti on them now. So the ZW is a character from the game. And then obviously somebody doesn't like them. That says Rick Denver, who clearly doesn't know how to space his wording out.
No.
And then somebody's calling them a tryhard. We've got Komodo on the back. That is supposed to be the Flaming Fist logo that I've designed. It's kind of not obvious unless you get up close, but there's actually like a fist in there. And
yeah, I can kind of see it.
Posters. Some of those are actual real-world things, and some of those are edited posters or things I've created from scratch. So this is one that I've created from scratch. It's actually a PAX. It's actually a PAX sign. And it's advertising things like the Sega Entertainment System. Just because I'm having fun. There's a poster on here for the mayoral vote that basically led to the city going down. There's a poster here for a wrestling company. And an Alice Cooper poster because Alice Cooper is awesome. On the back, we have one last one. This is maybe the best mistake I've ever made. Originally, this was going to be a hockey mask that I would eventually draw over the top of. When I went to weather it, it wasn't quite dry yet, and it smudged. And so I went, stuff it. And I just went, I put water in it, and I just went back and forth and basically ruined it entirely. You can almost still see what it kind of was. It looks like somebody's tried to wash it.
Yeah.
Which was, at that point, that was just like, I'm just going to make it look deliberate. And I'm really, really happy with how that turned out. And last but not least, there's a Mr. X logo there, which is actually a logo that I designed when I was in like year 7 or something. Because I don't know why. I obviously thought I was cool. Because Mr. X is not something totally generic that everybody has used at some point in their childhood. No. Anyway. I'm just like slowly I'd been doing them up and putting posters and graffiti on things. And like there is more of it, but I was just using that as my example because otherwise we could be here for hours and everybody would be bored listening to my stupid voice.
Talk nerdy to me.
Making big changes to existing games. Like realistically, like this is something that's a big risk for companies to make. This is inspired initially, I mean, not just by, but like the Drop Fleet stuff. Because at the time we were talking, and like, I still hold this opinion, those original bases needed to be changed. And we were talking about that the moment that the moment that those kits arrived, we were all talking about the bases were very smart, but they didn't work properly. Because everything was too small, it was too fiddly.
Yeah,
I found them small and fiddly.
Fit on the court.
My hands are normal-sized hands, and I had problems with them. So, Lord knows there's people that have much bigger hands than I do. But it's not just that. I mean, to some extent, you could probably make the argument that Age of Sigmar is this as well, but I don't really want to talk about Age of Sigmar. It's not really what I'm talking about. Just generally speaking, like, companies have to make changes to games over time anyway. Like, it's literally a point of trying to stay in business. Because if your game never changes, eventually either A, it gets stale, because there's points in games where things don't work the way that they were supposed to, or they work too well, and then people only ever take one list, and then the game becomes boring because everybody's playing the same thing. So you have to update FAQs, new editions. It's probably fair to say, like, there are people that get upset over new editions all the time. Like, that is actually a voice that is out there. And then basically people tell them to shut up and the voice kind of goes away. And this is another one of those topics where realistically there isn't actually a right answer or a wrong answer. Mm-hmm. Everybody is kind of right on this. But my first thought when I was planning this last fortnight was that, like, realistically, our initial opinions and the opinions of most of the communities was, like, these Drop Fleet Commander bases are groundbreaking, really, really intelligent, but I'm sorry, Dave, they need to be redesigned because they don't work properly. Everything's too small. That was pretty much the community agreement.
Yeah.
And nothing really happened early on. And to be fair, I know why. Because at that point you've already done them, and you need to you need to get your money back on the very expensive tooling that you've paid for. Because you've got to remember, plastic models to produce afterwards are actually fairly reasonable. Early on, you have to pay a fortune to get those molds done. And I think TT Combat's timing for this is because they were starting to have logistical issues. Like, we kind of hinted at that earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the fact that there was issues that needed to be resolved probably helped them make a decision, but it's not why they've made this decision. At least from where we're standing. It's kind of been hinted at several times that they knew something needed to be done, but it just wasn't really the important thing that needed to be done at that time. And I would have agreed with them. Like, there was other things that were important at the time. But another example is one that we was talking about earlier as well. When Warcradle purchased Dystopian Wars, one of their first thoughts was, well, we could kind of throw this into our universe. That means we're going to have to kind of change the story a little bit. Like, that got very mixed opinions early on. Like, there were, like, you're not allowed to change things. The internet will tell you this every time you try to change things. Even if those changes are actually not changes and they've been in existence for a long time. But I think it's fairly, like, honestly, the recreation of Dystopian Wars, which is, but like, they
pretty much did. They took
it's
second
been
edition and
completely
turned it into
renewed.
third.
The rule set, from what I understand, is still very close to the original rule set. It's just been adjusted a little bit for balancing. But it's a completely different world now. And it's, I would argue, it's a really well-created world. They've used that to help describe the rest of... Because the problem with Wild West Exodus is that the Wild West Exodus story is only... it's essentially like 2 or 3 towns in the middle of the United States.
Yeah.
We've always known that this was happening globally, but you don't get to see that. Like, the warrior nation, like, in the game is like the Native American tribes and stuff. But the warrior nation as a whole is every indigenous population. So it's the Aboriginal Australians. It's, what's the correct term for people that live in Alaska?
The Inuits.
Inuits, thank you. I was almost going to say the other thing, which is not something I should say. And that's like... Law-wise, that is what they are. Now, in saying that they also don't exist in Dystopian Wars. But this helps tell that story of, oh, no, it's affected everybody, not just the US.
Yeah.
Something of that scale is always going to affect everybody.
And you can see that in the 8 factions that they've created for Dystopian Wars.
Yeah.
I mean, the only nation, only continent as a whole that isn't really in there yet is Africa. There's chunks of Africa that are part of sub-factions.
Yeah.
There are sub-nations within a main faction, but the majority of Africa is not there. Otherwise, the entire world is covered. Even Antarctica is covered, because that's kind of where the Enlightened is, along with all their science complexes. But the Enlightened has a strong presence down in Antarctica.
I'm kind of hoping that when we do get something that is purely African-based, that it kind of takes inspiration from a few fairly obvious sources. I'm kind of like, yes, obviously Wakanda is one of them. But not just... Because there were real-world events where Africa almost became a power in and of itself a couple of times. Mm-hmm. Why didn't it happen? That's a very complicated story, and not all of it is a very nice story. Sorry, Socks, but your country is partially involved there. Not your division. I'm pointing the finger at you, CIA. You literally assassinated somebody. Mm-hmm. Though there's also arguments as to whether that would have actually helped or not. Because there was fears that he was going to try and become a dictator. Evidence tends to suggest that that's not the case, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But I'd kind of like inspiration to come from that, because... Yeah, like an actual powerhouse from Africa. And maybe one of their thing is that they want to unite their entire continent. And they have problems with the fact that these other divisions are owned or joined with others. Whether they're with them for good reasons or bad. I mean, some of these probably are with the crown because they choose to be. Or maybe they're forced to be. Or whatever. But political interest is where you get story. So that's where I'd like to see that come from. I mean, Malifaux has in the other side, there is a faction that's very African based and is basically it's a sci-fi Africa type thing. Like I think you could draw from that very easily. Like you don't need to break any ground there. Like you don't want to make it Wakanda, but like you can take ideas from it.
Yeah.
Because like this is a world where an alien presence has basically changed everything. So, and look, hey, they don't need to be good guys or bad guys. Make it all shades of grey. Definitely make it all shades of grey. Don't just, yeah. Because if you start making it like, well, this is the thing, but they're very much evil, you're going to have problems with that. But if you make them pure white Samaritans, pure, what's the term? Like, if you make them like just if you just make them faces, that you're going to have problems with that too. They should have as much shades of grey as everybody else.
Yeah.
And then, realistically, that's where you should be avoiding all of your potential PR nightmares. Because make no mistake, like there is potential PR nightmares in doing a faction there. Because the internet is the internet. And you're not allowed to have nice things. I don't know. Can you think of any other examples? I mean, not that we're here to talk about it. I just wanted to have the conversation, really.
Legion.
Yes, actually. Well, there's an example of one that didn't necessarily go very well. I mean, it's still being played. Like there are people that's still being played.
It's very popular still. But
there's certainly a player base that's dropped off, but
yes,
that does happen anyway. And Shatterpoint was always going to do that. Like they lost a lot of their players to Shatterpoint. They really did.
They did with that, and yeah, and we've talked about this too. The way Asmodee Atomic Mass Games took over the transfer that merger was not in the greatest of fashions, and so I
don't have as many problems with how that happened, but I understand why people do.
Yeah.
The problem, like, what should have happened from this, because Fantasy Flight, like, they were basically doing something they weren't set up for. Like, Fantasy Flight weren't designed for miniatures, and
no,
like we had nothing but logistical nightmares from day one of Legion, basically. Some of those issues have been fixed. Not all of them. But post-pandemic, like, things are actually releasing when they're supposed to be releasing now-ish. You don't have as many logistical problems now as we used to. And it used to be a monthly occurrence. It had been a massive complaint for a long time. So from that perspective, it helped a little bit. I would also argue that you're never going to get opinion on that to change, regardless of how well they deal with that side of the business.
No, I agree, because there were times, I mean, I have Armada, and there was months, almost years, waiting for stuff.
Well, it was about 18 months.
New product-wise.
Yeah. Like, what we had declared the game dead at one point. I mean, they recently supported a tournament. But that's kind of it. I mean, they're kind of relaunching a box.
They gave us the
Store support,
or not the Clone Wars. They gave us some Clone Wars stuff, just to kind of tease us some stuff. But what I was trying to get at with the transfer was none of the lead designers for either game went over, which I understand.
Well, there's potential problems with that, because the thing is that we don't know if they wanted to go with them or not.
True. You're right. We don't.
Because it is certainly, and I'm not saying that they didn't, but
when you lose your lead designers and nobody has played the game.
Yeah. But also, realistically, it wouldn't be the first time where a game has gotten to a point where the original creators were less interested in it than they used to be. The example I'm thinking of is Guild Ball. The company literally killed the game and refused to sell it anymore because it had become something that they didn't enjoy. They never wanted it to be the competitive power, like the pure
The power creep.
competition. It's not so much power creep, but it had basically become like everything had to be balanced. It was supposed to just be a fun little game, kind of like Blood Bowl, but a little bit different. But it became this massive competitive thing because that's what their community had asked for. And so obviously you give the community what it wants, but it based like the snowball effect. Like they just became miserable. I'm oversimplifying this story massively.
Yeah.
As just a potential other side of that argument. Like there's nothing because hey, yes, he created this, and that would have been because Asmodee wanted a miniatures game. But does he prefer to work on board games? It's where he came from. Because I'm kind of playing devil's advocate to some extent, but basically the point I was trying to make is that realistically, Asmodee is the one that did this, not Atomic Mass Games. Atomic Mass Games got all of the flack from it because, of course, they did. Because again, this is the internet. But Asmodee made those decisions to clean up the business, basically.
Yeah.
It's taken the last. I mean, it's been 12 months, 18 months since this decision. No, it'll be about 12 months. It was about this time last year. And it's like, it's really only just starting to settle down now.
Oh, yeah.
At this point, like it's just, they need to do, they still need to do something with Armada. They either need to officially kill it, and I'm not saying I want the game to be dead, but they need to either officially kill it or officially start doing something with the game. Don't get me wrong. I understand that Shatterpoint is the focus right now, and it should be because it's the new hotness. But
more than just
they should be working on whatever they're planning to do with those. X-Wing as well. X-Wing needs attention as well. They need to make that call. I mean, I would argue that there are actually too many Star Wars games in the market right now. It's probably not a very popular opinion to say. From a community standpoint, all of these games are going to have their communities regardless of whether the game is actually being sold or not. Like, famously, and we're not talking about Games Workshop, it's a much smaller company, but famously, when Blood Bowl was killed, that community never died over those 8, 9, 10. I don't actually know how long it was dead for, but that community powered throughout, no support for a very long time. But most recently, Games Workshop decided that they're bringing back. I mean, it's not Epic, but it's based on Epic, basically.
Yeah,
which is like the tiny little miniatures, and look, there's still been people playing that original game to this day. There's nothing that says that you can't play a game that doesn't get supported anymore. You have to find your way around, obviously finding miniatures, because eventually the miniature line runs out.
Yeah.
But from a Atomic Mass Games standpoint, there needs to be decisions made there. I have a feeling that Armada is going to be the one to go, because X-Wing is the bigger game. Here's the other issue. I also think there's too many space combat games on the market.
There are a lot.
And we're about to get another one. Infinity has one coming out. It's been made by a separate company, but they have one coming out. And honestly, it looks really good.
Well, and I've heard talk of Battlefleet coming back. Well, I think
there's been talk about that for years. Honestly, if Battlefleet came out, I would be very surprised. It might happen. I know people want it to happen. I don't know if there's enough room in the market for it. In saying that, I'm going to put on my my Cynics hat for a second. Here we go. I'm wearing my Cynics hat. Games Workshop customers will buy what they are told to buy, and if they are told to buy the new Battlefield, I think they will do as they are told, because that is what they do. if you have a miniatures game and you don't update it, you're going to have problems. Drop Fleet Commander.
New units are released, you have to balance out the game.
Yep.
You see a meta growing, you have to balance out the game.
I will say this. Drop Zone Commander. There are still people to this day that aren't entirely happy with the changes that happened to Drop Zone Commander. But regardless of what you think about those changes, I actually think the game's really good. But regardless of what you think about those changes, the game at the time where those happened was in a situation where it desperately needed updates. Like it needed them quite badly. Regardless of what you think about the updates, that's not really the important thing at this point. It needed to happen. It just didn't happen in the way that you wanted them to.
Ground combat was a little confusing in 1.0.
Drop Fleet Commander needs second edition, but here's the problem. It also needs time for that second edition to happen. Because ground combat is a problem in that game and always has been. It's a problem that Dave acknowledged being a problem back in the day. Like, he acknowledged that was a problem. But you need time to fix that problem too.
Mm-hmm.
So, look, I know for a fact, I don't know if I've ever said this publicly, I know for a fact that there were divisions within TT Combat as to whether they should do the 1.5 or 2.0. I know this for a fact. I have people on record with it. I'm not going to name names, but I know that there was arguments over that decision. And I do mean arguments. I'm not misspeaking here. That is the word that was used. But I would probably make the argument that fixing ground combat in that game is actually going to be, it's not going to be easy. We've made a couple of suggestions in the past. Some of those suggestions are, it needs to be simplified a little bit. It's not really overly complicated. It's just, it's a really annoying part of the game. Like, it's really annoying. Because it's like, it takes ages, like, it kind of...
It's a sub-game.
It's a sub-game, but it's a sub-game that doesn't really feel like it achieves anything. I mean, it does achieve things, but...
It does, because
it just feels tedious. It's not fun. It's the fun aspect of ground combat that needs to be fixed more than anything. And I don't really have the answers for that. I would like to see some changes in when you score too. Not so much all the time, but with like different missions, because you already score in certain rounds.
2 and 4.
I would like
that.
I would like to see that updated in the second edition, so that different missions have that. So that some of them will be all the time, some of them will be during certain, but so that the turns in which points happen changes. Because it's 4 and 6 from memory.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. But I would like to see that change to some extent. Not permanently, but I would like to see that it change up so that it depends on the mission. So that if you are doing tournaments, that it adds to some variability.
Some randomness, yeah.
If you were the one making the decision, which of the Star Wars games would you kill?
That's a tough choice. But based off of my play style, X-Wing.
It would be X-Wing.
Yeah. I love the capital ship feel. Kill Shatterpoint. So Shay's saying kill Shatterpoint. And actually, I would kind of have to agree with you there, Shay, as well, because
you don't like
they are taking up. No, the way I saw the demos run when they were doing the Adepticon didn't appeal to me at all.
I haven't sat and watched a full game, but I have enjoyed what I've seen. But in saying that, I also enjoyed Marvel Crisis Protocol. So, and it's basically, it's not the same, but it definitely shares a lot of elements. It shares a lot more elements than they said it was going to. Let's put it that way.
Shay wants to say it just because he likes chaos. That would be chaos.
that would kill a company, quite frankly. It would literally kill the company.
Probably.
For me, I'm purely basing this on the market right now. For me, I would kill Armada because it's the one that's had no attention. Well, almost no attention. But I would kill it with the intention of bringing it back in a couple of years' time. That would be my intent. Is that, look, this may return at a later stage, but for now, it's been put on the shelf. It's done. And then they concentrate on the ones that they have, and they're not allowed to look at it until all three of those games are going well. Because Legion needs attention, but X-Wing needs attention more. Now, realistically, they could make the call of killing X-Wing instead. Because honestly, if you was to kill X-Wing, I don't think it gets missed. Because I would also argue that there's really not much more that you can do with X-Wing at this point. Like they fix the issue of the constant pushing of new stuff. But I don't know if like a third edition of X-Wing. I don't know how much that helps.
I don't know how much more they could. I mean, other than diving deep into the expanded universe,
or starting to
Starfighters,
like basically making the call of, well, you can't use old chips, you have to buy new ones, and that's never going to work. Like that will, like they may as well kill the game. Yeah, no, I take my comment back. No, kill X-Wing. Like there's still stuff in Armada to do. The disappointing thing about
Armada that you could do.
The disappointing thing about choosing to kill X-Wing is that realistically, the dogfighting aspect probably feels more like Star Wars than the capital aspect. Because in the movies, it's all about, like, you don't really look at the big ships; they're always in the background. It's always like it's the dogfighting that's the.
There's three that had capital ship battles.
Yeah, but it's not. It's not ever really the focus. It's usually the smaller ships.
No, you're right. But I'm thinking of episode 2.
Yep.
Sorry, episode 3 with Grievous's ship.
Yep.
Rogue One, and so actually, you could almost say episode 9 as well, where everyone bands together right there at the end. And then
episode 9, everybody's favorite Star Wars.
Episode
movie.
6.
Episode 9, everybody's favorite Star Wars movie.
Yeah. And then episode 6 with the second Death Star. Those are about the 4 movies I can think of that has huge.
Yeah, true. Maybe I'm wrong then.
Out of the 9.
Yeah. I mean,
but
episode
you're right.
1 is like, I don't know. Maybe that's just a bias of. But I still think that you're right. I think X-Wing is the one that you would have to kill because there's just nothing left to do in it. Like, and like they can make the call of like releasing new versions of the ships, but there's been so much
game to version 3.
Well, they forced so much of it down. Fantasy Flight forced so much of it down people's throats that, like, realistically, I don't know how much it even really sells now. Like, it feels like there's stuff on the shelves that never move. Now, that's probably not the case. It's probably just being refilled often enough that you don't notice it.
Doesn't notice it, yeah.
But you can't tell me that there's stuff out there that people need to buy. Like, people that were interested in X-Wing were interested in X-Wing a long time ago.
I was one of them. And as soon as Armada came out, I sold all my X-Wing.
Yep. I've never played X-Wing. I've taken elements of it because, like, the templates, obviously I took that idea for mine, but I'm not doing space combat. But for, like, turns and stuff in a motorbike game, it made a lot of sense to kind of borrow that idea. I didn't borrow the mechanic, but I did take the idea and do something of my own with it. Anyway, that was the discussion. Like I said, there's definitely multiple sides to the story.
Tournaments, demos, conventions, that kind of stuff.
The Nunawading Wargames Association Games Day is happening next Saturday. So this is Saturday the 26th. It's happening at the Central Ringwood Community Centre at Bedford Park. It begins at 10 o'clock in the morning, continues until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's a gold coin donation entry fee. Everybody is welcome. I will be there hosting a table. this is the first time my game is being shown to the public outside of the people that's been helping me playtest. It's going to be interesting. I am really super nervous about this. Like, I really, really am. Because, well, this could go really well or it could go really badly. Generally speaking, like, I don't mind about getting negative feedback. That's fine. But it's going to be interesting to, like, if this goes really, really well, that could be great. Or if it goes really, really well, this could be really, really bad because maybe I struggle to keep up with it. It's just going to be interesting to see. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. There is a map that's been sent out to the people hosting the tables, but it's not final yet. When the final version of the floor map is released, I will share it on the public page so that people know where I'm going to be located. If you would like to follow my game more closely, if you do a search on Facebook for Entropy City, there is a group that's been created so that you can follow the progress of the game. It includes some of our Patreon. It includes some of the people that's been helping me playtest and or people that have just been interested in hearing about how it goes. But if you're somebody that's been following along through this and you would like to follow a little bit more closely, feel free to join the group. And hopefully that'll... The idea of that community group... I mean, in theory, I have a page that's ready to go eventually. I haven't launched the page at this stage. I won't until it starts getting closer to being a finished product. But that is definitely something that's going to be happening at some point. Otherwise, yeah, feel free to join. Also coming up is your event. When's your event coming up, Socks?
We're starting the first week of September, which is September 6th, and we'll be going through about 15 November. We're doing a escalation league, starting at about 1,000 points, playing at Critical Hit Games, and in St. Pete, Florida, and then every 2 weeks or so, we'll increase that up to about 250 points. So we go up to 2,000 points, and we're going to do a tournament at the end of that. So, and then we're going to go diving right back into a narrative campaign after that as well. So
nice. And that is happening at Critical Hit Games in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Yep.
As opposed to St. Petersburg in the middle of Europe.
Correct.
Weapons Free Drop Fleet Commander Tournament. This is taking place in South Wales. It's at the South Wales Gaming Centre. This is Saturday, 2nd of September, 9 o'clock in the morning. 1,500 point tournament. It's going to use the 20-0 system. And yeah, should be good. Prize support still to be determined, but should be good. PAX Australia is coming up. PAX Australia is from the 6th to the 8th of October. I will be there. Saturday tickets are very close to being sold out at this point. So if you want to be there for Saturday, which is the bigger day, you really should be buying your ticket now. If not, you should have already brought it because it's like 80% sold out or something. I might be slightly off on that. And then finally, the Northern King Con is coming up. Oh, sorry. No, not finally. Tabletop Gaming Developers Association, their DevCon event is coming up. This is happening the day before PAX on the Thursday. I will also be hosting a table there. This is a game developers conference, basically. Whereas if you are developing a game, you can bring your work along to this and get people going through and having a look and so on and so forth. There will be people doing talks at the event that have had successful launches of games in the past. This is my first time going. I'm going for obvious reasons. And yeah. And then finally, Northern King Kong, 24th to the 26th of November. This happens in West Yorkshire, £55, which includes your hot lunch for Saturday and Sunday. I mean, £55 early on sounds like, yeah, I mean, £55 is like, well, yeah, but this is just a tournament. Why would I pay that? It includes your food. That's why you would pay that. It's actually a really good deal. Because it's not just sandwiches, it's a hot lunch. It's a really good deal. Thank you again to Valhalla Hobbies. Valhalla Hobbies, like They've been sponsoring us for a little while at this stage. ValhallaHobby.com. They have a real passion for the niche gaming community. They actually do sell everything. Like, they've got a massive range. All of your Warhammer stuff, all of your Dungeons and Dragons stuff. They have card games.
Wars.
We don't really mention the card games as much because we don't really look at them very often. Infinity, Dystopian Wars, TT Combat. They're actually getting in the Black Site Studios stuff now. I don't know if it's arrived, but I can confirm that it's been ordered because he told us that recently. And honestly, their prices are really good. Plus, if you use our code, you get an extra 5% off. We get nothing from that. Like, legit. Like, we get nothing from that. It's just an offer that is made to our listeners. I mean, it also helps him track how much this sponsorship has been worth it for him. But Valhalla Hobby, they have a real passion for the indie, which I think is why they reached out to us, because that's a huge passion that we have. Get on the indie side of this industry. It's far more interesting than the major name. There is much better out there. I'm not saying that Warhammer is bad. Just telling you you're missing out. Big time. Check out ValhallaHobby.com. You won't regret it. Thank you very much, Socks.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Anything else you want to touch on before we go?
I'm good.
If you would like to support us, if you appreciate what we do, please consider supporting us on Patreon. It's only $2 a month. It gives you early access to all of the video content that we do. The video episode of this doesn't get released until Thursday. Our Patreons will be able to watch it at some stage later tonight. You can also check out our website, gettingtabled.com. We wouldn't have that if it wasn't for Valhalla Hobby. If you want to follow us on social media, facebook.com/gettingtabled is where everything gets shared first. We also have a Twitter, which is @gettingtabled, or an X. I don't know if they've actually changed the name of it, but it's got this weird X logo now. We're also on Instagram. Instagram is actually being used a little bit more now. We have a Discord that you can join. There will be a link in the show notes. There always is. It is open to anybody. Like, there is certain channels that you won't be able to access without being on Patreon. My Entropy City channel is one of them, and the Patreon one is one of them as well. Like, they have the ability to listen to us live while we're recording, which a couple of them have been tonight. And then finally, youtube.com/gettingtabled. Please subscribe. Try to get those numbers up as always. We have a new video going out every week. That will occasionally be more, but it's usually once a week. And otherwise,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For listening to Getting Tabled. Music used in this podcast was created by Eric Matyas at soundimage.org.
this is...